guys, welcome to another episode of the Real Football Talk. Ade, how are you? Been a while.
Yes. How are you? I should say. You're
I'm
very busy these days.
good. Busy. But yeah, good to be back. Good to be back with the Real Football. Um,
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. That's for sure.
yeah, I mean, I missed the big one, when Arsenal beat United. I just would have loved to seen your face after that one. But hey, we move on.
Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. All you would have seen is red and a lot of yeah,
This big.
a lot of gathering.
But let's get going. We'll start with Arsenal. I mean, they're going through a tough run where they haven't won in 4 games. And going into this game, obviously, it was difficult away at Villa, and they didn't make themselves any easier really. Going 1-0 down after 5 minutes. What did you make of it?
Yeah, the really nervous start. You can see the confidence was kind of down. And yeah, I mean, what a lot of teams are doing, which is what I tried alluding to in the podcast that I did uh, uh, on my own, was the fact that other teams are going to copy the formula that Brentford have shown, which is
Mm.
target Saliba in the air, or target Saliba a bit more, because while you play it on the ground, he's very good at stepping in and intercepting and
Yeah.
being physical. But as soon as it's slightly in the air, his reading is not anywhere near as good. And yeah, I mean, that's how they got the goal. And you see more teams attack down that side as a result of, it started with Brentford. You saw City attack down that side a lot and exposed Tomiyasu, but it seems like a lot of teams have found a chink and they're gonna try and expose it. And
Mm.
great finish from Ollie Watkins.
Definitely. That's what I was gonna say. He hit it quite early as well, isn't it? And he hit across his follow through. So it was a brilliant finish by him. But I mean, also you gotta give a lot of character to or kudos to Arsenal in terms of obviously coming back, considering how down they've been. They went down once, came back, and then went down again, and then came back again.
Yeah, I think it's just more obviously that they needed that first half and they needed to only go in 2-1 down. I think getting the goal early, just in the second half, really gave them the belief they needed. But you could see from everything that's been said afterwards, the message has been that the team has moved away from listening to what Arteta has asked them to do, and they needed that halftime where they come 2-1 down for them to realign themselves and go back into listening to what Arteta wants, word for word. And that's all. That's the message post game. Everyone's saying we've learned a big lesson. It's not, oh, we've learned a big lesson about the way we defend or the weaknesses of the team, or it's about belief and generally belief in the exact instructions the manager gives us.
Mm, mm.
So I do think it's big. It's huge, because there's a big weight lifted off their shoulders.
The other thing is also the in the manner of how they won. I think is important because like you could easily go away at Aston Villa or wherever and win 2-0 and look a bit comfortable and think that it's all hunky dory. But because they went through this struggle, I don't know. It'll unite them more and winning it kind of like last minute. It'll just give them a bit more belief than I think it probably would in any other way.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, Arsenal, now teams will be more encouraged to have a go at Arsenal for starters. It's fine margins. They won by very, very fine margin. The difference in a fingertip from Ramsdale onto the
Yeah.
bar and, a rebound hitting the keeper, it was a very lucky goal. Great shot it was.
Mm.
But, Bailey's and Jorginho's shots were equally great. But one, the intervention was enough to stop, and the other one is an unlucky intervention that So, the margins are fine, but I think with Arsenal it's slightly different because when Liverpool had false dawns, or Chelsea or Man City, all season we've said, we're not convinced that they're really over the slump. They've still got issues that you can tell they're not addressing.
Mm.
The thing with the Arsenal win is they addressed the issues at halftime, and it seems like they've gone back to basics. There's none of this, delusion where we're the better team and we won because we're the better team. It's very much we're going back to our basics, going back to just listen to Arteta, not overplaying, not being over confident. Because what was the motto? They went down the mode of trying to outplay everyone, and we spoke about it midweek around why did they lose to City? Because they wanted more than just the win. They wanted to outplay City. That's why they lost, and City went there to win. So I feel like they started off in that same vein in the first half, needed to get checked. And so it does feel like, and Arsenal is the team that's dominated or looked comfortable dominating games out of any team in the Prem this year. So I do think they'll fix something, and even though teams will have a go at them, still, hopefully a bit more cautious approach will help them.
But I mean, yeah, it has been a problem for them because they've been leaking a lot of goals recently. Some of them hasn't been helped because of refereeing decisions, etc. But what can you do? But they have been leaking a lot of goals. So this probably something they need to look into, because obviously, like you said about Saliba, targeting Saliba, it doesn't seem like they're fully confident at the back. So that's definitely something to look into. Another thing, I mean, a lot of people could say maybe because Partey is missing, but I mean, I watched the midweek game against Man City, and then people are saying, yeah, but if we had Partey, but it's not like Jorginho played bad. I thought Jorginho was really good in that game, and even in this game, I thought he was really good. So I think Jorginho also brings in a lot of different qualities and leadership, and you can see that in the Aston Villa game. Even after 5 minutes, he was going up to Eddie Nketiah, something he done wrong, and he was pointing out, "Look, this is what you need to do." So it shows the qualities he's bringing in, and it's a good cover in a short term fix for when Partey is missing, because he's always missing.
I think in terms of the way the teams have played against Arsenal, you're right. I do agree with you. I don't think Partey would have made as much difference as people are making it, simply because of the fact that teams were going direct. Even City, they went direct against Arsenal, right? Because everyone's now realized and respecting the energy, the pressing that Arsenal do. That it's like the old Liverpool press. It is very good, and because of the speed and the physicality of the players who are doing the press from top to bottom. You got Nketiah fast and strong. You got Saka fast and strong. Martinelli fast and strong. Odegaard aggressive. Wherever you look,
Yeah.
Xhaka aggressive. It's a hard press to beat. So I think, I'm not sure how much Partey would have made a difference. Maybe he's slightly better at reading those balls, and might be better at supporting the centre backs in the second balls, maybe. But definitely, I don't think he would have made as much of a difference, simply because the teams were going direct.
Exactly.
And that was more the problem rather than personnel. And definitely, Jorginho brought something to the game, especially against Villa in the second half. I mean, everyone's going on about Odegaard's performance, which was good.
It was
but
good.
I thought he fed off Jorginho rather than, because Jorginho was the one taking the ball, stepping into a slightly more advanced midfield role, zipping those passes. And some of the passes he gave, the one he gave for Saka,
there was one he gave to Odegaard
with his right foot,
and
the way he was finding Odegaard in tight space, I just felt I'm not sure if Partey would have been able to increase the tempo in that way. Partey would increase it in a different way, which is to dribbling into space slightly more.
Yeah.
So I mean, they got a bit of variation. a bit more thing. And I thought that's the other thing that Arteta managed much better in this game, which was in this recent run. One of the things that has become quite clear is tactically he's not very good with his substitutions. He does a lot of like for likes.
Yeah.
Doesn't take risks. He sometimes takes players off when they're actually playing really well at the time or making a difference. So there seems like if you wanted to draw criticism, tactically in-game management, maybe not the best. But then I felt like against Aston Villa, he took the risks, he took the right risks, and he got rewarded for it ultimately.
A lot of question mark on Eddie Nketiah. Obviously, he's been having a bit of a dry run. Is there too much on his shoulder? Is there too much to ask for him? Because obviously, in the last 3 games, I mean, he's probably missed 5 like easy chances, which is free headers or tap-ins.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely needs to do extra work on heading because
He had 2 against City, one yesterday.
yeah, they're very good chances. So I just think he's obviously feeling the pressure. I think this will help, though. I think if Odegaard didn't miss the open goal, that would have helped Nketiah too, because he would have been integral to creating that chance, winning the ball, getting an assist. That would have done his confidence good. But you could sense the moment Arsenal start dropping points, it naturally will add more pressure to the striker. That's with any team.
Yeah.
The striker feel the pressure more simply because they're expected to do something to get, to be able to pull something out the bag. And because he's missed a few chances, obviously, you can see he's feeling the pressure. The win will do as much good. And we all know, the game's a lot of it on match days about psychology and, your mental frame and confidence on the day. So I think the win will help Nketiah and he might get back on a score run. But clearly there is a level difference between what you expect from elite strikers and Nketiah. And the thing is,
especially a Premier League striker, he's a Premier League striker. You're getting a free header. You have to be taking it.
But I do think you can't be too harsh simply because this is the first time he's the main man at a Premier League club. Even when he went to Leeds or wherever else, he was never the main man. So he's learning on the spot. This will make him a better player. I mean, if they get through this, which they potentially have done with this win, and if they win the next week, that's going to make him a better player because you got to imagine how many different areas of his game he's working on just to be a regular starter. So maybe now that he's comfortable in his position, comfortable in the integrated in the way and the system and the rhythm of the way Arsenal are playing, he may not just be able to take a bit more time, do extra session on working on his finishing, which he might not have been able to do because he's working on other areas of the game to get into the first team.
No,
which he clearly has done. So I think we got to, you got to understand the age. His first time, most players improve year on year.
I'm not being very critical because what do you expect? He hasn't had the game time, etc. So what do you expect from him? He's got us good important goals for us anyways. But obviously, when you're going for a title and when you're challenging, you need to step up and you need to. Or for Arsenal, they need to have someone that's going to be scoring, or else it's going to be an issue because Saka can't always just carry the team. Because that's what he feels like he's been doing since after the World Cup, really, because Martinelli
since Jesus has been out,
Martinelli hasn't been scoring.
The real threat is only Saka, and we touched upon that in the midweek podcast too, because now Martinelli, you're feeling more the loss of Jesus by the form of Martinelli, because Jesus and Martinelli had such a good connection, such a good understanding of each other's game, and with Nketiah that just ain't there. So Martinelli is not as involved and is not as threatening.
He's isolated as well, Adil. A lot of the time he's isolated because Zinchenko goes inverted in, he goes fully in. Then it's only with Xhaka left there. who's not very mobile either to rotate and swap position. So it doesn't really help him being out there on his own on that whole left hand side. Whereas if you look at the right hand side, you got Ben White overlapping, Odegaard underlapping. So there's options there for Saka to rotate as well. I know he gets doubled up, both of them they get doubled up, but still there is more options and more ways to vary his game. And that's where I think
I mean,
your point fits in perfectly about Jesus, how he comes into that space.
But I think that's, that's tactics at the end of the day. That's not, I don't think that's because if we go back to the game against United, all Zinchenko did and Xhaka did was overlap and play close to Martinelli. And that's how they won that game. That's how they dominated, was overlapping on the left side. So I think, it might be tactical rather than it's because the players, that's how they play. The other thing is, it wasn't a problem before. I mean, they're not changing things. I just think it's definitely a confidence thing that people can, play a bit more safer and less, adventurous when the pressure's on. And a lot of these things isn't Arteta changing the message. Sometimes it's just what's going on in the head. They say squeaky bum time. You squeeze up, you get tense, you don't play as freely as you were.
Quick one before we move on, Adil. Do you think it was the right decision to start Trossard in this game and give Martinelli a break?
Yeah, I think you have to say that because Martinelli played with a calmness and a patience that he hasn't shown. Even if you look at for the Jorginho goal, he was very patient. Previously, he's running at the defender. He's not showing. He's not mixing up his game. He's too busy trying to
beat him in the outside.
Probably trying to make a statement or do what Saka is doing, which is kind of being able to carry the pressure and make a difference. Maybe he's trying too hard. But this is the game where he went back to looking at picking the right options. And the goal will do him a world of good. Again, that was not, I mean, even though, it's an open goal, still the way he, changed the direction of his run twice to kind of have that opportunity still just shows, he's probably back. He's using his football intelligence a bit more.
Quick thing on Aston Villa. I don't know if you've picked up, Adi, about Unai Emery. He seemed to be really frustrated with this team because he kept mentioning about the fact that they didn't really listen and follow his plan and kind of took it upon themselves and went more direct. Like we were saying, teams were going direct and his team went more direct and didn't control it like he wants them to. What do you make of that? Is it just a case of obviously is recently in and it just needs time to embed those philosophies, or because he seemed really annoyed about it?
I think this is how Emery is developing the squad, because it's one thing when you give them your team the template and the philosophy. This is how we play. This is what we do, and then you develop that identity and the maturity of how to manage a game. And it looks like he maybe tried giving them instructions in the second half on how to manage and maybe play on the counter a bit more in a 2-1 situation at half time. And the team were able to do that. And maybe he wanted them to keep possession, play slightly shorter, play in the right areas, and play to the counter a bit more. But they still wanted to play gun. So that's part of the development of a team that only when the coach or the manager shows their disappointment can the team start figuring out and realize, okay, we need to understand there's game plan and there's different modes and there's different tactics involved and there's how to play possession and how to make the opposition work when you're in the lead.
It's good timing, though.
It's part of the process.
It's good timing, and I like the way he done it because obviously it's a good way to do it because they were winning 2-1, and for him to do it obviously after they lost and stuff, it's really like timed well and stuff. So
the thing is, that is what all good managers do. All good managers, because one of the ways you can tell someone is a good manager is when they actually identify the problem. How many times do teams just
Yeah.
will put it down to, you know, what
Unfortunate,
referee
unlucky. Yeah.
decision,
Mm,
or you know, and they technically cannot identify or analyze what really was the problem.
mm,
The fact that he was able to do that shows you, and we already know it's not like it's not known that he's a very good manager. So
yeah.
um, it's another positive sign because it just shows they will be a lot more savvy next year because they got a manager who will coach them
Yeah.
in that way.
Let's move on. I mean, obviously, Man City got a great win over Arsenal over last week. Going to Nottingham Forest, 1-1 draw. What did you make of it? I mean, thoroughly dominant, but just didn't take their chances, and he ended up costing them. And Steve Cooper, you can say he got his tactics right because he changed that lineup, went three up front with Chris Wood, and really pressed that back three.
I think it's easy to paint over it as City were unlucky. I think this result is firmly on the shoulders of Pep. It showed we don't know if it's naivety or arrogance, but at the end of the day, he didn't respect N.Forrest. He didn't respect the players they have on the pitch. He didn't respect the game. Ultimately, um, it's not the first time this will happen, and it will happen many other times where a team smashes and grabs something they don't. It's happened to City many times. I remember, recently, even last year, they dominating the game. I think against Leeds, and the Leeds scored in the last.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah,
it's end-to-end battle, they lost the game, going two gun ho and things like that. So really, you're 1-0 up. You're going for the title. Why continue with this ploy of Bernardo Silva being a makeshift wing back on one side?
yeah.
Um, you know, get Ake on, seal the game.
Go for the
You know,
back. Yeah,
so I just feel like tactically he made the mistake. He didn't react, and he took a chance. Ultimately, he took a chance. He gambled, and it's cost them dearly. So I think it's too easy just to keep saying, "Oh yeah, Steve Cooper done this," and it was poor from Pep.
no, no.
He didn't he
Listen, it
didn't
is poor
recognize
from
the
Pep.
danger.
I get it. It's poor from Pep, Adil, but you have to also credit Steve Cooper because he saw the opportunity. It was still 1-0. He changed it up at the front, went a bit more direct. He got the two fast wingers and he put Chris Wood up there as a focal point. And as soon as Chris Wood came on, he started winning those headers thick on. All of a sudden, Nottingham Forest were further up the pitch and then they get the cross and the goal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the credit is there, but I just think you can give credit to the players, Brennan Johnson, Gibson, White Gibson, and all. The play, the football was good. The build up was good. They played well to create that chance. There's a lot of good football there, but that's my point. There's good players on the pitch. Gibbs White is a very good player. Brennan Johnson's a very good player. Danielson's a good player.
Yeah. Mm.
I just don't understand why he didn't react when Steve Cooper made that jump and went for it. So yeah, I think definitely Pep. He gets praised when he does positive changes and the genius. Well, this you have to say was a moment where possibly he'll regret come the morning. I think he'll definitely regret come the morning. Not make it being playing a bit more safe.
But I mean,
And
they dropped points again and gave kind of Arsenal the ascendancy because if Arsenal win the game in hand, they can go 5 points clear. So even if they were to lose the game against, obviously it's all hypotheticals, right? But it still would need Arsenal to lose other games. So it takes it kind of away from their hand.
yeah, I mean, it does feel like uh, their squad is short, especially in midfield. In my opinion, it just feels like they're midfielders. Like
If Man City
they're
are
relying on
midfield, then
Yeah, because obviously they've got a lot of good players in attacking zones, wing positions, but they're relying on Gundogan, uh, to play most of the time. If you're going to the system where you're putting a fourth midfielder, into the team, then who comes on to give these lot rest? You're seeing them rotating loads of defenders. They've got loads of defenders. They can rotate. They can switch. They've got enough changes in the forward line to make. They don't have that many on the midfield areas. If you're relying on bringing the young kid on as the a midfielder, then it's just a risk. So I just think yeah, they may be suffering from, and I know Pep said at the start of the season he wanted a smaller squad, he prefers it, less headache with keeping players happy. But it just feels like uh, they lack options,
But I think
especially when they're not using Phillips.
doesn't it also bring the question of how wise it was to let go of Cancelo, because Bernardo Silva simply doing that role because Cancelo has left and he doesn't trust the other backup left back. So
I think that's the reason why they got rid of, because they were playing a similar system with Cancelo in the team.
yeah,
I feel like they were.
no, no, I get it, but then
but
that gives Bernardo Silva to go in midfield, so that's extra player, right? So
yeah, but I think for them, the problem was Cancelo just was not aggressive enough in his pressing this year. He's dropped off a lot in his off the ball work, his energy. So while he was a solution, and while uh, if you have him in the squad, and you play Bernardo Silva, it's a bigger talking point.
okay.
Like the fact that they've moved him on and then they play Bernardo, and they don't have a clear cut left back or left wing back in the squad, there's less criticism of Pep. If they had Cancelo and they're doing this, you can imagine people say, "What the heck is Pep playing?" So I think he actually managed it quite smart, probably, in allowing Cancelo to go, because there's been less scrutiny on the road, but it's cost them this game. And again, credit to Steve Cooper, like you said, for spotting the weakness and attacking it.
Exploiting it, yeah, yeah. What I mean, does it make any difference to them in terms of obviously dropping the points? In terms of the chase of Arsenal.
Yeah, huge difference, because it's all about momentum, and as we just seen, um, Arsenal were folding under the pressure when the momentum was the other way, and now you've just given it back. That's going to be a big weight off their shoulders. So, it's hard to build that pressure, and it's hard to build the tension. So now you've kind of released it. You gotta build that up again through phenomenal performances, to really scoring high volume of goals and trying to get that pressure. But it's always a release if you win and then the people chasing you
Drop
can't
point.
match it.
Yeah,
If City matched it, can you imagine the pressure would have still been on?
it'll be there. Yeah, 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 because City would have been top.
Yeah, and now it's just a big release. So I think definitely I think it's a big momentum shift.
And
Still a long way to go, but it
yeah,
is. It's
no,
just
no, of course.
it's just keeping it going a lot longer. I have a feeling if City outrightly took the lead, like without
Yeah,
the games in hand, I think maybe Arsenal might have struggled to continue to keep up. But it just seems that while everyone's faltering, it's just going to give Arsenal the bravery, the confidence to continue being brave. The nerves aren't going to kick in as much. The tension ain't going to kick in, because they've got room for maneuver, room to make mistakes.
yeah. That's. I mean, whilst Arsenal and Man City kind of dropping points, there's somebody lurking in the shadows, catching them up ever so quickly. Manchester United. I mean, another win, great win, and Rashford's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite
2
easy to
now.
say
I
Rashford's
forgot.
probably the most informed player alongside maybe Osimhen. Them two are the most informed strikers in Europe right now. But yeah, I think it's United are winning kind of through tactics and mentality. They're not. I wouldn't say it's terrible performances, but they're not convincing. They're not really dominating. I think what I like about it is the fact that they've recognized they've got problems within the squad. They've got injuries. They've got suspensions. They haven't actually got great depth in their squad. The levels between the first 11 and the backup is quite big, and they're not. They've recognized that they're not trying to overplay. They're trying to win through grit, and which is
Yeah.
what they do. And anyone who watched that first half, I mean, Leicester really should have been a
Leicester
few
should have
goals
been
up,
2-0 up. There are two
and
great chances,
and for
and
the
David De
first
Gea.
first 35 minutes, I mean, Leicester really did play very good, excellent football. Madison and Iheanacho were absolutely all over United, and yeah, if it wasn't for De Gea, it could have, it
You
could
know,
have been a comfortable lead at half time.
the first save was good, but I thought the second was even better because it's gone behind him and he kind of still pulled it back. I
It's
think
not,
I
it's,
think
it's,
that
it's not just the fact that it's gone behind. He was completely at the
yeah,
front post as
yeah,
that cross comes in, so he's actually traveled the length of the goal as well. So yeah, but that's the game. I mean, the hard ones he seems to save, and
yeah.
easy ones he's fumbling at the moment. So yeah, but gotta give credit to Leicester in the sense that they played really well and they caused a lot of problems tactically to United, and that was a game of tactics of which obviously Ten Hag really showed his tactical acumen and ability because he made the change at half time, and I like that mentality. I like the fact that he's not afraid and it's not negative, and it just shows how much the players trust him and are in sync with him. That even 1-0 up, they got dominated. He didn't hide from the fact that they got dominated. He didn't hide from the fact that this ain't working,
Yeah.
even though we're 1-0 up. And he actually fixed it and then totally dominated and overran Leicester in the second half from the first minute. And that just shows one, that how good he is tactically, two, how much the players trust him. Because how many times have we
The
seen,
buy-in's there. The buy-in's there.
yeah, but how many times have we seen when the manager's leader and he makes a change at halftime and makes an early change? You'd hear a groan, and the players, you could just tell that the
Yeah.
mentality changed, like, oh, this is negative. Why change something that's working? None of that was there. They just totally on page with the manager, did exactly what they did. And the thing was, it was the right thing. In that first half, you could tell Tete was the outball. And because Shaw was going, Lisandro Martinez was really struggling to pick up between Tete and Iheanacho because they're both playing on that side. So they were overloading on Lisandro Martinez, and that was the outball that United were really struggling to stop. And by switching it all around, and the thing is, it's not like Weghorst played really well in the first half in the 10 position, better than most of the other players. Not
Yeah.
like anyone played bad, but it was just Leicester playing superb, really good 1-2 touch football. Soon as they tactically got their position in and the right personnel on, and the threat of Rashford now being on the left, suddenly you're not seeing Castagna bomb forward. Like first I was bombing forward because Garnacho was
Another overload isn't there.
or letting him run and then try to sprint back. So suddenly the respect happens. I don't think I saw Castagna push forward until right near the end of the game, like the last 5 minutes, the second half. That's what Rashford brings, that respect. Suddenly Tete's not just hanging off Lisandro Martinez, and now suddenly he's trying to support Castagna because it's Rashford there.
Yeah.
So it's very good tactical changes. Um, and yeah, there's a lot to like about the way they are performing and the way they are winning. It's too great. Then it'd be wrong to suggest they are playing excellent football, not playing. But who would have thought this United team would be,
I think
able to
they
win
they
like
are
this
they are
without
3 points.
Casemiro, without Eriksen,
They are 3 points off Man City and
without Martial? They got big.
five
They
points
got
off
big two
Arsenal.
starters missing,
Mm, mm.
and a heavy load of game. I mean, I think someone was saying um they've played more games than them by quite a margin.
Well, yeah,
Um,
they because they're still in the Carling Cup, FA Cup, Europa League.
yeah,
The 2 extra games in the Europa League
but,
because
but because the Europa League has more games than the Champions League, it ends up being more than what Liverpool were doing a few years ago.
mm, mm.
Simply because there's more rounds in the Europa League. So
it's kind of changed, but it's because of where United finished in the
mm.
Europa League. That's why they got 2 extra games because of the qualification way they've done it. But yeah, I mean they're 3 points off City. If City drop points, they're right in there. I do.
I don't. I think the amount games, the lack of depth in the squad, every chance they've had to claim that second spot and really put a bit of pressure and really put themselves in they've drawn or lost. So I just think, and I don't think it's because of the tension or the pressures. It's just there's only so much plug in the gaps that you'll be able to get away with. Eventually, you'll come up against a team that will take points off you because you're just asking too much, like Rashford and Bruno Fernandes and now Weghorst are playing everything. There's no rest there.
Mm.
If they are winning comfortably, then yeah, Rashford will come off. But right now, because they're missing a lot of their playmakers, a lot of key players, it's too good. And it's
Yeah,
tough to win.
you can't really take
Yeah,
off the biggest threat of Rashford, is it? Yeah, so it
yeah.
makes sense. It makes
So
sense.
today is the first time in a while they're able to give him some rest, but Bruno they can't.
Mm.
So you can just see, that you could tell against Leeds they were leggy, so where they drop points. So I think that's what's going to stop them. But are they ready? Are they showing um, they can handle that title run and pressure? And yeah, they are. They're certainly putting everyone on notice for next season.
Mm, mm.
And if
Maybe
the
with a couple
takeover
more.
goes well, then
Mm.
it's going to be exciting times, really.
Quick one before Sancho. I mean, it seems like he's really integrated him into the squad really well. Taking him out at moments and putting him back in, and since he's come back, 2 goals already, and
The
two.
thing, the thing that I would draw on the most is I don't think I've ever seen a front line as flexible and fluid as I've ever seen with this United team.
Mm,
And that's saying a lot because if you think about it, you got Weghorst who's switching between playing a 9 and a 10. You got Fernandez switching between 10 and right, sometimes even on the left, sometimes false 9. You got Rashford everywhere across the front 4 positions. You got Sancho right, left, or 10. It's and it's in game and it's multiple changes in the game. I don't think I've seen a forward line
mm.
where every single player just gets on with it and changes positions as often as this United team does. And that is what's making them win because everyone is putting the team first and sacrificing maybe their favored or best position for the team. But I've never seen it to this level where a team is as flexible tactically
Yeah,
in the
every game it
forward line
seems like they play 2 different positions after like
and
45.
in-game changing and that's how they're making it work. And you have to give credit to the players and the management that everyone's all right. I mean, how many times do we see players sulk about having to move and change? I mean, Fernandez, there's times he's moving 4 or 5 times in the match. Sometimes playing as a midfielder, plenty of games where he's playing in midfield. So you have to give credit because they got every excuse to complain. They got every excuse to use it as an excuse. They got every excuse to question what the heck is the manager playing at.
Mm.
And we've seen that. We've seen that with many teams, and definitely the spirit and the unity in the club is phenomenal. How much Ten Hag has changed the whole atmosphere and culture in the space of 6 7 months.
It seems like a good environment to go in now, rather than what it was, you could say, even 6 months ago. So it seems like there's a real unity there now, and obviously seeing the way they're performing and how together they are, it definitely flowing well for United, really.
Well, I mean, the stats back it up.
Exactly.
Since I think I've read or heard since Ronaldo went out of the team, United have picked up the most points out of anyone in the Prem.
There you go. So Ronaldo's the problem, Adil, yeah?
No, it just says a lot, really, about how important it is everyone pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move on, obviously, because to Newcastle and Liverpool. Big game, considering that if Liverpool win, they could potentially chase down Newcastle and give them a bit more hope. And if Newcastle win, it could be the closing shot for Liverpool. But it's Liverpool who came on top, 2 goals, and then game kind of got killed off with the Nick Pope sending off.
Yeah,
it's the right decision. It's the right decision, but
I thought, to be honest, I thought the game was already killed off. It's just 2-0. Newcastle tried going toe to toe. They're getting exposed doing that. They played into Liverpool's hand, and going down to 10 men, they started to play with a bit more sense, a bit more calm. The way they normally play, which a bit more methodical, and they looked better and caused Liverpool a lot of problems. Obviously, Liverpool held on to what they had, so weren't being as progressive, and maybe it's, you can still see the fragility in Liverpool. I mean, that team, even with Van Dijk, still got cut open quite a few times against 10 men, and Newcastle, played a lot better with 10 than they did when they had 11. So I don't think, the good thing was the sending off happened when it's 2-0 and comfortable for Liverpool already. And I just think, strangely enough, it might have helped them because it allowed them to reset and kind of play a bit more calmer and a bit more, pay a bit more respect to Liverpool, because they're just playing too fast and too hectic. I think
they were trying to expose
Trent.
They were trying to expose Trent, isn't it, by getting Saint-Maximin one-on-one against him as often as possible. So that's what it seemed like, because that's where they were creating the chance, and they got that first chance from that.
I think they got too excited after that first chance. After that first Almiron chance, I think they got too excited and tried playing too fast as a result, which just played into Liverpool's hands, because obviously when it comes to transition, quick counter-attack, combination play, there's no team that does it better than Liverpool. And you can see now the system that they're playing now, the way they got Gakpo, kind of creating the space. That whole goal was exactly what I spoke about, which is Gakpo will get better at doing the Firmino role of creating space for
Nunes
to do the Mane role, which is coming behind. One thing that has to be spoken about, which I'm surprised no one is picking up on, maybe because of the good form he's been in, but for that first goal, I thought Trippier was a complete and utter joke.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what he was doing, leaving that gap to go out wide, which is
it's not just leaving the gap. One thing is there's no actual threat. When you look, he's so busy looking at Robertson. Robertson is on the halfway line. He's not even in the Newcastle half. I think it's like a yard inside his own half still.
I think he was a yard inside the Newcastle. Sorry.
Yeah, and he's so preoccupied with someone who's miles away, 40 yards away from the action. Number one. Number two, why on earth is he trying to claim offside in the world of VAR? Why is he trying to do Atletico Madrid style, conning a ref? In the world of VAR, and the thing is, before Nunes chests it, he has his arms up. He stops. Nunes takes a chest, resets himself, changes his foot, and then hits the shot. That shot could have been missed if
there was a
just tried to slide in, pressure him. I just thought on two counts is just real poor defending from Trippier, and maybe because the England international people don't want to highlight it, but that was poor. You don't expect that from, and I just think he just copped out. I mean, that's just silly. Putting your hands up and not putting pressure on the striker, kind of quitting on the game play. I don't.
Just carried on because he knows if he is offside, VAR will overturn it anyway. So he should have just carried on and gone with that tackle.
It's a bit like Fabian Barthez tried conning the academy. It's like it doesn't make sense. You're not putting, probably Nunes hasn't even noticed Trippier trying to claim his offside. So it's just, but the whole
Listen, you can't take away from the finish though, I do.
Well, I think the ball from Trent is 1 in a million. There's not many players in the world who can send that ball with that precision, that weight, that flow. That was world class. I mean, there is no. I genuinely don't think there's many players who can play the ball Trent did. That is truly world class. Like that's what creates the goal. Ultimately, it was put on perfectly.
Yeah. But great touch as well to bring it down. But it really brings that race for top four really close, because if you look at it, Newcastle haven't only won one in their last 5 or 6. And obviously this win takes Liverpool onto 35 points, only 6 points behind Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean,
all the Newcastle's injuries, it's there.
Injuries and suspension, but I think again it draws down to that mentality shift they've had. I alluded to in the midweek podcast about the difference in United are literally playing not great and going gun-ho to get a win. And Newcastle are happy with draws. There's complete different mindset right now in the way they are going about it. And maybe because of the gap, they maybe took their foot or eye off the ball a bit. But they've certainly given everyone a sniff by playing, not playing to win as much. And clearly, obviously, we did question it. We always said it. What will happen when Guimaraes gets injured or is suspended like he is now? And this is what happens. I mean, he is that good and he is that important, and the results are showing it now.
Because obviously now Spurs have taken them over. They're 5th now, after Spurs 2-0 win against West Ham. So seems like they're giving it away a bit. Maybe not getting another midfielder in January is going to end up costing them that top 4 place, because
it's a bit difficult to kind of put past judgment on Newcastle, because I don't think it's because they didn't want to get a place. It's because of FFP rules, and again, the politics that goes on at Premier League level. We all know, it's been well reported, how suddenly they've changed the rules this year around the sponsorship and around the marketing and how much money you can get from the country that you're from and things like that. So they've made sure it's very difficult for Newcastle to increase their budget to getting deals from Saudi Arabia or anywhere else in that region. And
Mm.
again, it's politics of the big clubs trying to make sure that Newcastle don't do
It's a, no, but
what they need to do.
it's a bit unfair considering how much Chelsea are allowed to spend, and then obviously you got someone like Newcastle and they're not allowed to spend their money. They got owner, let them spend it. That's his money. If he wants to give him, yeah. How are small teams or teams that are not in the say in the top six bracket? How are they meant to bridge that gap? Bridge that gap that they have if you're
Yeah,
not allowed. And this is the whole problem with the whole system. It feels like.
but obviously the way it works is it's the chairmans that run the Premier League. Ultimately, they're the board members. They're the ones who ratify the changes. Um, so it's in their interest, the big clubs or the traditional top six, to protect that. And you look at Everton; they've been hampered in how much they want to spend. They got owners willing to throw the cash, but they
Yeah.
can't SFP rules. Newcastle's the same. You know, this is going to become more and more common theme because ultimately there are clubs willing to spend that money. You look at Barry Neckers of Nottingham Forest, you can tell he's willing to spend that money
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make the gap. You got Aston Villa willing to spend that money. So there are other owners that, but you can tell this is from the side of the top six, it's smart the way they've managed to change the rules.
Mm.
And so around that, can't really blame Newcastle's recruitment policy. I think they were and would have signed
Mm.
more players in January if
If
they were allowed to.
yeah. But in terms of race for top four, obviously, another positive result for Spurs, 2-0 winner, against West Ham. Seems like since Conte's kind of gone away a bit, they loosened the shackles a bit.
And I mean that's what I took into the result against City, and then the midweek and then the performance against AC Milan.
Milan, yeah.
That's the analysis that I took. Is basically it's a if you compare it, it is quite similar to what is going on or what we said earlier on about Emery.
Mm.
I just feel like the Tottenham players, not all of them understand game plan, strategy, these type of tactics that Conte employs, and they haven't got that level in them. I generally don't think most of them, and that's why Conte, for his brand of football, for it to work, he likes experienced players because there's so much tactical game planning and situational football that he's coaching to his players, and under Stellini, that's not happening. That in-game management, over in-game management ain't happening. I still felt they were poor in the first half. I mean, that could could be probably the most boring first half I've watched this season. Um, you know, there wasn't an awful lot of good football,
No.
but again, second half they got away. Then I think that's more down to West Ham than it is down to anything. Um, you know, Spurs ended up not having to go out of first gear much.
And win.
It's,
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much.
they did enough. They did enough to win simply because West Ham were just there for the taking. I mean, that the negative approach, against a team that's under pressure, lost their last two games, needs to win. I don't know. Um, no one's expecting West Ham to win, so I always feel like those type of games you should be able to play in a more
Freedom.
free and really show some intent.
Mm. I mean, they've dropped into the bottom three now, so it's them, Leeds, and Southampton. So it's not. It doesn't look good for them, and Everton seems to be going the other way. So
Yeah, I
rightly,
mean, the thing is, there's some clubs that have, given faith to their manager and they've seen the rewards of it, like Leicester and Nottingham Forest. But then also there's other clubs that have sacked their manager and have got that advance.
yeah, yeah.
Everton. Wolves. So West Ham haven't got they haven't actually got that. By backing Moyes, they haven't got it. That the results haven't turned. They still keep losing, and they still keep yeah, they never outplayed, and they never. But you're not playing to score. You're always playing to contain.
Yeah, yeah.
And pick off mistakes. And that negative mindset, when the morale and the confidence is down, isn't what's going to help you out of it. At least with Nottingham Forest, they was even though they were losing, even when they lost 6, they were still trying to attack, and they were still trying to score goals no matter what. And with Leicester, no matter what, they were always trying to play.
Yeah. Mm.
With uh with West Ham, you just don't see any attacking impetus. You go Aston Villa, you got so many teams, the teams that have made changes. They got a more attacking outlook.
But it sets up perfectly because obviously the next game they've got is against Nottingham Forest. So if Nottingham Forest win, they go further away or closer to the magic 40 points. And if West Ham win, they just drag Nottingham Forest right back into the relegation fight.
I don't think that Nottingham Forest have ever really gone out of it, but because these aren't teams that once they kind of get a bit of a 5-point gap or 6-point gap that they're going to maintain it, because these are all inconsistent teams and everyone's got a good enough squad to beat each other. It is a lot down to momentum. So I think, I wouldn't say Nottingham Forest out of it anyway, but I do think that's a big game for Moyes probably. Maybe that might be his last chance to actually, because there's no doubt every week that they continue to not win. The question marks will be asked is very similar, very similar situation with what happened with Lampard. Every week he wasn't getting the result, or with Jesse Marsh. Eventually, when you see the bounce of Aston Villa and the bounce of Wolves, that puts pressure on the board to act, because you see other teams get it all the way.
Yeah. And it brings perfectly into Southampton, really. We've got a surprise great winner at Chelsea. I mean, who seem to be just continually struggling. What is going on? Because I think they said Graham Potter has made changes to the team every single game, so he just cannot decide on his side or his starting 11.
Yeah, I mean the problem is more it's like 4 to 6 changes every game. If there's 1 or 2 you could understand, but 4 to 6, just half the team just shows that it doesn't show it, but it doesn't give confidence to any player, because players need to know they're the guy, they're the ones, they're the number one. That just gives them that edge, that gives them that confidence to go out there, that they got the manager's confidence. And what I feel he needs to take a leaf out of Steve Cooper's book, who had loads of players. They tried making it all about how you attack, got battered, and then completely done a reset and went into. There was a couple of games when N.Forrest just defended the whole game. Got an nil. There was no attack. They just literally hoofed it the whole game and pressed and stayed in the defensive. But that's what they needed, just to change the narrative, just to bring the belief that we are a team, we are all working to one cause, to bring that unity, that we can keep clean sheets. And then they worked on the attacking game. And I just feel like when you have so many changes, so many signings, the hardest thing and the thing that takes the longest to create is the unity, is your off the ball work. You got amazing players, individual players that can do something on the board. You don't need to focus on that, but it just seems like they're focused on passing, possession, playing their football, and kind of trying to control games rather than the work they're doing off the ball. And I think definitely Potter is guilty of focusing too much on the ball rather than off the ball, and they're struggling. And then obviously the constant rotations ain't giving any player confidence. He needs to just settle the team for a few weeks, play this, and and it's not like anyone's got fatigue in his squad. Maybe Thiago Silva,
Yeah, you
only
could say
player
he's
that's
the only one. Yeah, he's the
between the
only one.
regimes is the constant. Everyone else gets rotated, even under Tuchel.
Yeah.
Everyone was getting rotated. There is no one that
Same.
is getting overused in that team. So I don't understand why for a couple of games in a week, if they have 3 games in a week, keep the same 11.
Mm. And
They're
it's not like they've got a
gonna
lot of
lose
fresh
the
players
game.
that came in. So it's not like it's been that same stuff for the whole season. They got a lot of new players that's come in, even in January. So they've got fresh blood that they can put in who haven't played enough games. So they could. But another thing that surprised me, I don't know if you listened to his press conference after the game, is that he said Southampton were better prepared. I'm thinking, how can Southampton, who just sacked their manager, be more prepared than you?
Well, they were because they had the whole week to
No,
prepare for the game,
I get it, but
and that was a game of 2 halves. I mean,
seems like an
Southampton
excuse. That's
completely
not true.
dominated that first half.
Mm.
You know, it's a game of 2 halves. So I do think. I mean, Potter needs to be careful. We said it before. I think the pressure he has, and there's a lot of similarities actually with Nathan Jones here, and even maybe to an extent you could put some parallels with Jesse Marsh in the sense that you can just tell the way the manager talks just creates a wedge between the manager and the fans. And Potter is doing that. His calm approach, his philosophical answers, it's not helping the situation. And I think the fans probably don't mind the results as much as the performance of Potter and his press conference and the way he talks. That's what's alienating him and adding more pressure, and the boos are coming. I think everyone kind of understands that he's been put in a hard place with the amount of signings that happened in January. It's ridiculous amount of signings. How much that would have destabilized the team, especially when you haven't got rid of players. So you've got overblown squad, a lot of egos, players on silly money, you know, and on top of that, you haven't, you're new. So I just think definitely he has to change his tone. He needs to start at least saying the right things to buy himself time. I genuinely think he's on a tightrope because of the way, because it doesn't matter how much the board trusts the long-term vision. When fans start booing, and we saw how toxic it got at Everton, at Southampton, where complete disconnect between the board. And right now, everyone's happy with Bowley because he spent the money. He's brought the glitz back to Chelsea, but that's soon gonna turn into Bowley, the guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
If Potter doesn't change his tune.
My problem is the way he's going on about it. Is he seems very defeatist. There's no energy. Sometimes even through press conferences, you can give belief to the fans. Even after a poor result, you can show them that there is progress being made. It doesn't seem like that with them. It doesn't seem like the way he's talking. It doesn't seem like there's any progress.
Yeah, I mean,
he's constantly bringing them down.
Back to Emery, innit? Look what Emery said. He's put everyone on notice. He's let people know he's not happy. He doesn't expect.
But from fans, they will see that as a positive, a positive spin on a defeat.
And there's certain things he's doing that just ain't helping himself. For example, how can you put Fofana ahead of Aubameyang? Like the whole squad knows. And there ain't gonna be one player, probably with Fofana himself, will say, if I'm picking the lineup, I'd have Aubameyang ahead of me.
On top, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're making decisions like that, it's just stubbornness. It's not, and the way he's rotating constantly, yeah, it worked at Brighton, but you're able to build that mindset, that mentality in.
But you had
were
the players
guy
for a
who
long
signed
time. You had the
No, but
players
the
for a
thing
long
is,
time to do it.
he was the guy who signed the players. Here, even though it's happened under his watch, he's not the guy who signed the players. Bowley signed the players. He might have signed off on it and agreed it, but everyone knows he's not the guy who tapped them up. Do you get it? So I just think, yeah, it's a real bad recipe.
Are they in trouble? Is it because obviously not finishing Champions League at the moment? It doesn't even seem like they're going to finish in any Europe position. But so what's going to happen? Because that's cause for concern for Chelsea fans.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they're gonna get that top four. I think they're gonna struggle to get into Europe. I think they will. It's a write-off. You can tell, and I think the board are willing to give him that time and that space. The problem is more the way he's talking. He's alienating himself with the fans, and you can see that he's saying things where you can tell he has to prove himself. He feels like he has to prove himself, and by doing that, he's being more stubborn in his values, in his belief, in being calm and philosophical. A lot of parallel, very similar to what Nathan Jones was doing. But at the end of the day, you have to convince your fan base. Doesn't matter what private talks you have with the board. They're not going to back you if the whole stadium starts turning on the board.
Listen, hearing some, I mean, I got some friends who are Chelsea supporters, and I'm telling you now, they're not happy. They want him out. They want him out. So it doesn't, and obviously that's going to be flowing through the rest of the people within Chelsea.
But I genuinely don't believe.
And the booing doesn't help either. So that clearly shows the fans are turning as well.
But I don't believe they want him out solely because of the results and performance. Performances some of them have been good. Again, Dortmund, very good performance. I think it's more the fact that they can tell he's not elite. He doesn't cut it as an elite manager. He's afraid to put people in their place. And look, that's the way he's managing. He's trying to keep a squad of 35 players happy. Why are you afraid of upsetting some of them? Upset some of them. One thing you should do is upset the only striker you have in your squad by not selecting him.
I don't know. Struggles ahead for Chelsea. But Adu, thank you for today. And for those of you watching, thank you for watching. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and we'll hope to see you soon.